Welcome to another Goodies podcast video in which we're going to take a spin around this amazing Goodies game board while chatting to the man who created it, Garry Azzaro from International Ridicule. Garry first unveiled his Goodies board brilliance around a decade ago when he took one along to be signed by the Super Chaps at HMV on Oxford Street during the 40th anniversary, and our podcast correspondent at the time, Professor Dave, chatted to Garry in the queue.
And they signed it for you, did they?
They've all signed it for me on their respective places on their little silhouette on the Trandom.
Oh, that's superb.
And they all want one.
I'm not surprised.
So they've all got my card.
Cool.
Since then, Gary's made custom boards for the Super Chaps themselves, plus one for Steve here at the Goodies podcast, and they are the bee's knees. And Garry makes all sorts of amazing pop culture game boards and has picked up fans along the way, like Kevin Smith and other celebs, when he takes them along to conventions, and they love his work. Now, we're just about to release a big interview with Garry over on the podcast itself, but here's a short bonus video to show you the goods. Hey, it's Jeffers here from the Goodies podcast, and I'm with Garry from International Ridicule. Hi, Garry.
Hi, Jeffers.
You and I are going to be chatting about these very fun and attractive Goodies board games that you make, and as owned by certain Goodies, of course.
Yep.
Plus the podcast's own Steve Gerlach, who will be on camera. I've asked Steve and Megan to set up the board, and as we're watching them do that, perhaps you could tell us how many of these Goodie sets that you've actually made.
Well, hang on a minute, 1 second. There's, I believe, 6 in existence. One is the one that I made back in 2010 for the 40th anniversary signing at HMV in Oxford Street, London. One, Mr. Steve has himself, which I handed to him in person when he was visiting Europe. One belongs to Mr. Tim Brooke-Taylor. And 3 were commissioned by Graham Garden himself for his sons and granddaughter, if I recall correctly.
So what I want to do is ask you, what game piece should Steve choose as we do our tour around the board? And can you explain the game pieces to us?
There is, of course, a gibbon. And I think it would be very remiss not to use the gibbon to travel around the board.
Yep, good call.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got a black pudding. You've also got a cowboy hat from Bunfight at the OKT rooms. You've also got a microphone for obviously all the many songs we've enjoyed over the years, and a director's megaphone for making movies. But I think the gibbon, off the top of my head for that one, the gibbon would be the ultimate choice. Oh
yeah, perfect. At the bottom of the board, we've got the first sets of properties. There's 8 sets of properties in all.
Yeah.
We can see there's brown, and then there's blue, and then there's purple and such. How do you match them up? I mean, how did you choose, say, for example, the 3 blue ones, which are Scotland Hospital for Hire and the Stone Age?
I think I just went through all the books and got all the episodes, and then I sort of cross-referenced against information online, like that would list best moments or best episodes, or trying to nail down for the 22 top Goodies episodes is obviously going to be tough, because there's 76 odd episodes, I think, and try and sort of pick 22 and leave 50 odd stranded is a very tough decision. So I think at the time, I just sort of did it at random, just obviously Kit and Kong's the top square as you go round. I think I went through and cross-referenced a couple of lists and just sort of went, oh, that's got to be in there, and that one's got to be there. And I think when I ran it past Steve for his design, I think he was fairly happy with the selection on there. Because I make them to order, there's always that option to swap out one episode for your favourite, or one image for your favourite scene. But I think it stood up. I think that selection has stood up across the board.
Yeah, I think you can't go too far wrong with these. So they are all episodes, and then we've got other elements on the board. Over on what I'm going to call the left-hand side, you've got the Goodies file. And over on the right-hand side, I'm going to call that the disaster movie. And I love how you include books, you include records, you include songs. Everything is mentioned on there.
It's there where the 4 traditional, I mean, there's certain trademarks of a well-known property trading game that I'm not allowed to sort of use.
Of course.
And one of them is train stations. So I don't use train stations. I'll pick 4 of something that's tied together. And of course, with this, you've got the Goodies Annual, you've got the Goodies File, you've got the Book of Criminal Records, and you've got Disaster Movie. So 4 books there. So, advance the nearest book. And then for your utilities, you've got the new Goodies LP and Nothing to Do with Us. So you've got two Goodies records.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Well, look, for the sake of moving along, Gary, let's get Steve to pop his gibbon down on one of the cards. We would go to Bill's Sherbet there in between the blue properties of Scotland and Hospital for Hire. So what's the process behind choosing Bill's Sherbet and Super Chaps 3 as... what do you call those? Are they penalties and prizes, or...?
They're the game card squares. So in that other popular game where you would have, say, sort of chance cards or community chest cards, these are those equivalents. And again, it's trying to sort of keep that fandom by including little nods. So Super Chaps 3 had to be a little nod. And Bill Sherbet, just because Bill was the sort of hippie of the group, that he'd have these strange ideas, hallucinations and notions just because he'd eat a sherbet fountain. It just struck me as, well, if you're going to take a chance on something, maybe some sherbet fountain will get you there.
Oh, fair point. What sort of things I'm hoping Steve is fanning through the Bill's Sherbet cards as we speak. So how many of each card did you have to come up with?
So there's 16 cards per set. So you've got 16 of Bill Sherbet, 16 of Super Chaps 3. So you'll get a couple of cards that are go to jail, or in our case...
Go to Clown Virus.
Advance to Clown Virus, yeah. So you'll have a couple of those. You'll have a couple of Advance to Goody Goody Yum Yum. So with like Bill Sherbet, you get these wonderful sort of little things here with bits from the other shows. So with those, any shows that didn't make the board cut, I could throw into the game cards and get another little nod in there.
That's cool. And look, you've made me think now. We haven't mentioned the money. So what I love about this is the bank of in-betweenies, and there's various denominations of cash. Punky business pounds. I do like that an awful lot. That involves a lot of printing, I dare say, because it seems to be a pretty hefty stack of cash to have enough to hand out to 4 players.
Yeah, there's 7 denominations and 50 of each.
Is that the most tiresome element of creating the game? The money?
It used to be when I had to trim them by hand. My printers now very kindly just put them on their guillotine and do them for me. And then all I have to do is just sort them out into their little sets.
I'm going to get Steve to move us from Bill's Sherbet over into Clown Virus, which is a brilliant idea for jail, and just as brilliant is Just Sleepy Bobos. Honestly, I mean, do you remember back, Gary, when you were making those decisions? And what was in your mind when you thought, I've got to come up with a punishment here, and I've got to come up with the just resting sort of non-punishment?
Yeah, I just thought at the time, I think Clown Virus just struck me as being what a completely silly notion, and it's a virus, which is kind of a bad thing. So let's just take that and work with that. And then for what would normally be your just visiting, I'll always try and theme that around something else. So Just Sleepy Bobos just seem to be, that's too good a phrase to not use somewhere. And
but see, this is why it's so perfect, is because when you're playing one of these games, of course, when you're in the punishment square, it's only temporary. And also, when you're just sleepy boboing, it is also just temporary. And a virus is just, all modern references aside to the world's current situation, ignore all that. But generally, when a person has a virus, it's just temporary, and then you're on your way.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're going to get Steve to take us up past my favourite trio of properties, which is the purple ones. That's just personal taste. Camelot the Movies and You Friend or You Foe is a beautiful smattering of every era of the goodies. And all personal favourites of mine. But what we do go past, as we mentioned them before, we've got the new Goodies LP, which is what we would call a utility, and we've got the Goodies file, which is a station, bringing us up to Super Chaps 3. But we end up in the Funky Gibbon. So what's the story there with that corner square?
Well, that would be your traditional free resting place. And you can't have a goodies board and not reference the Funky Gibbon. It just fits in that corner.
So then we move past the red properties, Alternative Routes, Lighthouse Keeping Loonies and Euthanasia.
Yep.
Hopefully Steve is going to take us down this posh end of the board, going very slowly indeed. Right, Kung Fu Capers absolutely deserves to be there. That's an all-time classic. Bun Fight, everyone would also agree with that. Scatty Safari, I agree with that. Do you want to take us a bit further down?
Yeah, I mean, those three you've just mentioned, they are all personal favourites at the very least, but I don't think there's any doubt that they are also classic episodes. And then your final two, if you want to skip down to that bit, are the Goodies and the Beanstalk, to which I managed to get a screen grab of John Cleese's Genie appearing to say kids program at Tim, just because I love that moment.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still use kids program when referring to other people's fandom. My wife is a big fan of Doctor Who, and every time Doctor Who's like, how's your kids program? The Goodies nod.
I'm just picturing Steve throwing a fit here and tipping the board on the ground as one of the world's biggest Doctor Who fans.
I'm not out to offend the Doctor Who fans at all. I like Doctor Who as well, but I just like winding my wife up more.
Of course.
So the Goodies and the Beanstalk just struck with me as being one of the top episodes that had to go in. And Kid and Kong, well, of course. I mean, it had to be Kid and Kong. I think if you were to say the Goodies to casual observers, the first thing they would come up with would be, oh yeah, the one with the giant cat. Kit and Kong had to be the top square, I think. With the Goodies, I think Kit and Kong definitely had to be that one.
Well, I think the vast majority of Goodies fans would totally agree. Garry, huge thanks for taking us on a tour around the board and sharing some of your stories with us. I've been thoroughly entertained, and thank you, sir.
No, thank you. And thank you again to Steve and Megan for their assistance with the video there. Thank you, Jeffers.